Stand up, stretch. Come on, guys, get up, stretch it, move around. Okay, big army circles, neck circles.
Good job, Mr. Mullen. Stay with it.
Stretch all the way up on your tiptoes, all the way down. Okay, stretching left, stretching right. 30 seconds, come on, let's do it. Oh, shake it out. All right.
All right. We're ready.
Oh, Mr. Mullen, that reminded me of a show I saw. Somebody was trying to get people to do face exercises.
Oh, really?
It was a real thing, or face yoga. That's it, face yoga. It was a crack up. All right. I am going to screen share a few things because for math, I'm going to break it into a couple of different sections today. First of all, I want to make sure you guys are practicing your math facts. And I'm actually going to put up a chart on Google Classroom today after math class, so don't do it now, for Fact Monster, because I asked you guys to go on and to time yourself for 2 minutes on addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. I want to make sure you're actually practicing all of your math facts. And here's what the chart's going to look like. It's very simple, I guess. Just level 1, Fact Monster. And I will put that website on with this as well, with the chart, and I'll put the directions. But I want you to fill out how many problems you did today. Today's Tuesday. So I'm actually going to gray out Monday. You don't have to do Monday because I already, Monday's over. So, and I missed that. I forgot about it yesterday. But today's Tuesday. So you're going to fill in how many addition problems you can complete in 2 minutes. Remember, the goal is 40. But that's only on level 1. Now, notice I put all 7 levels, and it's going to get harder and harder. So if you can master level 1 and complete more than 40 problems in 2 minutes, I challenge you to go on to level 2 and go ahead and up your game a bit and see if you can keep going on the different levels. All right? So that's going to be part 1, is practice math facts. And this time we're going to have to tell me, I just want to see at a glance how you're doing. And this is just you and your own personal time for right now, and for us to see if you're able to meet that goal. If not, practice every day. See if you get better. See if you get faster. See if you can complete more problems in that 2 minutes. Okay? That's the first part of math today. The second part of math today, we're going to be discussing adding and subtracting decimals using model drawing. And I'm going to do my best. I put this together, and I'm learning. Every time I put one of these together, I learn a little bit more. So yesterday, if you were absent yesterday, we were adding and subtracting decimals. And it's a 5th grade standard, but it's also a 6th grade standard. So we're covering our bases. It's a little bit of review for some of you. And some of you guys did really great on Khan Academy. And just a sneak peek into part 3 about Khan Academy, I'm going to have an extra Khan Academy session at the end of the day after all the lessons, so that we can make sure everybody has gotten logged into Khan Academy. All right? But for today, we're going to review adding and subtracting decimals just a little bit. And we're going to do that with model drawing and word problems. Now, remember, your mathematical practices is to make sense of problems. So there's a few buzzwords that you need to know for addition. Anytime you have a word problem, these are your buzzwords. You might think of, add, addition, adding, the sum, all together, if you want to find out something all together. Increased by or in total. These are all buzzwords for addition problems when you're solving word problems. So here is the first problem for today. It says Kim and Martin swam 50 meters in a race. Martin took 26 hundredths seconds longer than Kim. Said if Kim's time was 59 and her 50 and 9/10 seconds, what was Martin's total time? And that keyword right there, total time, you want total, that means we are going to be adding something for this first problem. And just to show you the model drawing, you have these nice little rectangular boxes that are units that are going to represent something. So this box here represents Kim's time, which is 50.9 seconds of time. And then you add a little tiny bit more, 0.26 is Martin's time. But we want to know what was the total time. What was the total time? And we have here that Kim's time plus Martin's time is going to equal the Martin's total time that he took to swim. Now notice we didn't use the number 50 for 50 meters. We were talking about seconds. We wanted to add the seconds. Martin's seconds and then Kim's time was also in seconds. So make sure you're adding the same values together. If you're talking about time, you want to make sure you're adding the times. This is the part where you're going to get out a whiteboard and your marker or paper and pencil. And I'll give you about 15 seconds to make sure you have those materials. Your whiteboards and markers. 7 seconds. 5 more seconds. All right, here we go. Hope you don't mind, teachers. I like using familiar names, and maybe it'll make it a little more personal here. So to get to school each day, here's your word problem that you're going to solve first. Ms. Digby rides her motorcycle. She rides it 5.7 miles. Then she walks 0.14 miles to enter the building. The total trip only takes 7.2 minutes. Whoops. What is Miss Digby's total distance to get to school? Total distance. Okay, what's the question asking? The question is asking, what is Miss Digby's total distance? Total distance. Next question, will you add or subtract? Well, total distance will give you the hint that you will be adding. And finally, what numbers will you use? Because there's 3 numbers up here, and you need to know which numbers you're actually going to add together. I see Bella's on it. She's raising her hand, ready to go. You're going to use the miles because the question is asking the total distance. So you want to know the miles that she rides her motorcycle and the miles that she also walks to get into the school building. Okay. There is a third number here, but that's talking about minutes. The whole trip doesn't take very long. So minutes, you're not going to use that number because it doesn't, it's not part of your answer in the total distance. Okay. So finally, we're here to the answer, and I drew an example. Shoot, shouldn't have the answer yet. I forgot you guys have your whiteboards. If you called up your whiteboards, let's see if we matched answers. Hold up your whiteboards, let me see it. Hold it real close. Hold it real close. You are adding, so make sure you are adding these numbers together. Total distance, total means add. So I saw that, Jaden Prado. Make sure you are adding these numbers together. Good job, Dylan. Good job. Who else? We got some more. Oh, lots and lots of answers on this page here. Sophia, Isabella, Anya. Good job, guys. 5.84 miles. And when you're talking about word problems, good job. I saw that, Emily and Shunashi. When you're talking about word problems, you also need to label to make sure you answer the question. The question was, what was Miss Digby's total distance to get to school? And the final answer would be a complete sentence saying Miss Digby's total distance is 5.84 miles to get to school. All right, so far so good, I hope. Subtraction, there's also buzzwords for subtraction, such as subtract or difference. And a lot of times a subtraction problem will say how much, either how much more or how much less, okay? There's also words like decreased or take away or fewer. These are buzzwords that let you know that you're going to have to use subtraction for these types of problems. Okay, here's an example. The Brido shampoo factory includes 1.078 ounces of vanilla oil in a 6.35 ounce bottle of shampoo. How much of the shampoo is not vanilla oil? Well, if you were really creative and clever, you could draw a shampoo bottle and make it look a little different. But with model drawing, we like to use rectangles to represent parts and wholes. This time you're starting off with a whole bottle of shampoo, which is the large rectangle, and that represents the 6.35 ounces of shampoo. Now they say they pour in some vanilla oil to this bottle, and that's 1.078 ounces of vanilla oil. So the question is asking though, how much is not vanilla oil? So here's a small box that represents the ounces of vanilla oil, but then you have all this other space that's other ingredients. So it's not vanilla oil. And when you want to know how much is not vanilla oil, you will need to subtract. You take the whole, you take away the part that's vanilla oil, and you'll get the part that's missing. You'll get the other part that's not vanilla oil. So you will have 5.272 ounces that are not vanilla oil. You add it all together. All right, so whiteboard time. Let's see if you can figure this one. Did you know Mr. Hartman and Mr. Mullen enjoy running? They like racing each other, okay? So this problem is telling you about a foot race they had. Let's just say they ran for 2 hours. Woo, they can run a long time. Longer than me, that's for sure. If Mr. Mullen runs 4.15 miles, he's a runner. And Mr. Hartman runs 6.02 miles. How much farther did Mr. Hartman run than Mr. Mullen? Okay, and again, what is the question asking? It's asking how much farther did Mr. Hartman run than Mr. Mullen? And the next question, will you add or subtract? And the buzzword here of how much, you're going to subtract. How much farther means you're going to subtract. And there are 3 numbers here again. Which numbers are you going to use? You're going to use the miles because you're talking about distance. So make sure you leave out the time of 2 hours. That's not important. Okay? Solve that on your whiteboard and hold it up backwards to the screen so I can see how many people are ready to move on. All right, good deal. Let's see, Rayla and Leslie. Hold it backwards. There you go. Kindlin, thank you. Mackenzie. All right, flip around your answers. Let me see your answers. Final answers. Aha, very nice. Very good. Ooh, every single person on this side page that I'm looking at has the right answer. And this was a tricky question because I used zeros to make you subtract. So here we are again. This time we're comparing how much further. You start with the total distance. You don't know what the total distance or how much more is. You do know the total distance. You can compare Mr. Mullen's distance to Mr. Hartman's distance and how long they run. And when you compare, you're trying to figure out how much more. So there's a small section here that you have to subtract to figure out how much more space or how much more distance Mr. Hartman ran than Mr. Mullen. And yes, Mr. Hartman ran 1.87 miles more than Mr. Mullen in that 2-hour time period. All right. Stop that. And you are going to have problems on Khan Academy that deal with adding and subtracting using word problems. But also there's a review from yesterday. There's going to be a short quiz. It's only about 5 questions that you're going to answer that are going to review adding and subtracting decimals. And remember, the most important thing about adding and subtracting decimals is to line up those decimals. Make sure the place values all fall into the same column. So when you add and subtract your decimals, make sure you line up those decimals. All right, and today is going to deal with more word problems, and model drawing is just one tool that you can use to add and subtract with word problems to help you figure it out. Draw a picture of it, see if the problem makes sense. This is where you use those mathematical practices, okay? That's going to be your assignment. However, this kind of leads me into part 3, or 2.5. On Khan Academy, I've had about 30 people who haven't logged in or completed yesterday's assignment, which is why I'm kind of piggybacking on yesterday's assignment and expanding on adding and subtracting decimals. Miss Digby has that list for me. She's going to put us all into a breakout room a little bit later, okay, when time is up after the lessons, to make sure that everyone can get into Khan Academy, because that's where all of your math practices and quizzes are going to take place. As long as we're on distance learning, that's where you're going to find your math. So I want to make sure that everyone can get logged on and understands how to find your assignments for math on Khan Academy. All right, and that is the end of math at the moment.
Okay, and let's start a lesson. Okay, so joinpd.com, the usual situation. Today's code is VIPCD. VIPCD is today's code. Ethan Inkman, turn on your camera.
Camera is on.
His camera is on, but he has it covered with something. That's why it's not letting me.
And now he's muted. Okay, lovely. Okay, take about 20 more seconds here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, let's get going. So we have been talking about supporting details and elaboration, which means we have a topic sentence, we have a main idea for a paragraph or a piece of writing, and we're working on how to support that topic sentence with interesting and important details. So, quick question. I want just a quick review from yesterday. Using strong verbs is a great tool for making writing more lively. So go ahead and click the bar at the bottom of the screen. True or false? Using strong verbs is a great tool for making writing more lively. Okay, take about 5 more seconds. True or false, using strong verbs is a great tool for making writing more lively. True, absolutely true. So when we use strong verbs, it creates a sense of action and activity. And so when we're reading, we don't have the advantage of watching a physical movie, a movie in front of us. Writers, authors have to create those movies in your head. How do they do that? They do that by using strong verbs. So yesterday we talked about a very important concept in writing, which is showing, not telling. So what I want you to do right now is when you click the bar at the bottom, you've got some choices. And I want you to choose what you feel is the best example of showing, not telling. So go ahead and click that bar at the bottom. I believe you have 3 choices. Go ahead and click what you feel is the best example of showing and not telling. We'll take about 30 more seconds. Okay. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So Mr. Mullen was happy. That is pretty much telling, right? We're identifying an emotion there, but we really don't know what's going on with Mr. Mullen other than he's happy. Mr. Mullen was happy and made a face. Okay, well, we've identified the emotion and he's made a face, but we haven't really described it, so it doesn't really create an image in our mind. But C, however, Mr. Mullen kicked open the classroom door, held his coffee cup aloft, and shouted, "Good morning," right? That gives us a much clearer and sharper image than A or B. So that is an example of showing, right? We don't say that Mr. Mullen is happy or in a good mood, but we're showing that. So this may look familiar. We went over this yesterday. So these are just examples of using strong verbs. So weaker verbs versus a stronger or best verb. So there's always going to be, whenever you look at, so let's take a look at this first example. James ran to school. It gives us sort of an image, but not as good of an image as James sprinted to school. So you want to make sure that when you are writing, you want to keep your sentences. A lot of times we sort of associate writing with long, complicated sentences. Not really. Your job as a writer, the most important job for you as a writer is to be clear. So clarity is king. You want to write, there's nothing wrong. In fact, writing short declarative sentences like this, James sprinted to school, is great. Because when it comes right down to it, your only job as a writer is to write and be understood. So that was yesterday's review. We're going to move on a little bit today. We're going to do something a little different. So by the end of today, we should know that we use quotation marks to show people talking. And so this is something that I see in my classroom all the time, or any classroom, and it doesn't matter if it's elementary school or a college classroom. People have trouble with quotation marks, and it's actually an easy fix. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And once you know it, you know it. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at this sentence. Trying to be cool is exhausting, said the new bird. Take a look at that sentence, and I want you to take about 60 seconds and tell me, what do you notice about this sentence? So again, sort of our theme for today, or what we're working with, is quotation marks. But I want you to take a look at quotations in general, but take a look at this sentence and then write just a brief response. What do you notice about this sentence? Okay, let's take a look at some responses here. There's dialogue. Yes, there's a quotation. This doesn't need a comma. It's too short. Okay, that is not correct, but we'll talk about why that is. I appreciate the fact that you wrote what you did, and we're going to examine why we do need a comma there. We'll get there. There are no strong birds, and at the end of that, there's a comma instead of a period because the sentence is ended. Okay, very reasonable. Birds can't talk. Parrots can. The bird is using quotation marks. Yes, because that is a quote. I think the bird is trying to be cool, but it's hard for him to be cool. Yeah, well, I think that's pretty much the case for everybody. Punctuation, all correct. That is correct. Oh, interesting. I like opinions. This is a lazy sentence. It should say, trying to be cool is exhausting, sighed the new bird. Good. I like that. I like that change. Somebody's got an opinion. That's good. At the end of the dialogue, there was a comma. Okay. All interesting observations. So I will tell you what I notice about this particular quote. First of all, anytime that someone is talking, a character in a novel or a play or there's going to be, I'm sorry, not in a play, that's incorrect. But in a book or a novel, anytime a character, someone is talking, you are going to have an opening quotation right here, and you are going to have a closing quotation. And then you will have your punctuation mark inside, and then what's called a dialogue tag at the end. And that is to tell us who, that gives us the information, who said this quote, who's speaking this word. So we have the quotation, and then we have what's called the dialogue tag, which is essentially the speaker of the quote. Okay, now, how are they alike? How are they different? So you have two sentences right here. I want you to take a look at it. I'll give you a little bit longer this time. I'll give you 90 seconds to look at this. Tell me, how are these two quotes alike and how are they different? Okay, take about 30 seconds. Okay, so essentially, how are these two alike? How are they different? Well, they both open with quotation marks, which tells us that someone is saying these words. They're both concluded with punctuation marks, and the punctuation mark, the commas, are inside the quotation marks in both of those. So that's how they are alike. How are they different? Well, you've got trying to be cool is exhausting, and then trying to remember everyone's name is exhausting. So we're still talking about activities that these two people or things find exhausting. And then, of course, the new bird is the speaker in the first quote, and the new student is the speaker in the second. So when it comes down to understanding the structure of a quotation, quotations have two parts. There's the quote, or the actual words a person or character says, and then there is what's called a dialogue tag, and that just tells us who is speaking. So we've got an example down here. In the red, we have the actual quotation. So trying to be cool is exhausting, said the new bird. And then the dialogue tag there in blue. So you've got two parts, the actual quote, and we make sure that we have the quotation marks around what's being said, because that tells us, yep, these are the words that the speaker said. And then the dialogue tag, which is in blue, which is the actual speaker of those words. So when it comes down to understanding the structure of a quote, there's only two parts. There's the quote itself, and then there is the speaker of the quote. So let's try it out on our own. Trying to be cool is exhausting, said the new bird. What I want you to do is I want you to use this sentence as a model. So in the response box at the bottom, you are going to type your own bit of dialogue, your own quotation, and use this as a model. So if you want to change a few words, kind of like we did in the previous slide, that's fine. But I want you to get some practice here and go ahead and write a quote, focus on the quotation, focus on the dialogue tag, and make sure that the punctuation is where it should be, okay? So I'll give you about 2 minutes and go. And doesn't have to be super fancy, doesn't have to be creative. I just want you to write a quotation using both parts, both the quote and the dialogue tag. And serious bonus points if you get the punctuation correct.
So hard.
So let's take a look and see how we did here. Trying to be cool is exhausting, sighed the new bird. Good. So it's punctuated correctly. We have quotations that lets us know what the speaker is saying. And then we changed said to sighed. So that's good stuff. Good stuff. Trying to be enough for everyone is so exhausting, said the girl. Oh man, that is a, but long story short, punctuated perfectly, well done. Trying to breathe is exhausting, said the bear. It's all that honey, all those picnic baskets that he's raiding, I'm sure. I wish we didn't have to do online school, sighed the sad little girl. Perfect. Guys, you drilled this. Good work. Is that real glass? Oh, okay. Good here. We got the quotation correct. The only thing that should be different here is instead of the punctuation mark, or I'm sorry, the comma, we should have a what? That's right. Question mark. Is that real glass? Question mark. And then you could say Alex asked, A-S-K-E-D, period. Perfect. Because it's past tense. So good job. Guys, you drilled it. Proud of you. Good work. Good work. So a couple of quick interesting facts about quotes. The end punctuation goes inside the quotation marks. This was something that it took me until college to realize and practice, because Agnes Rust was an absolute beast when it came to grammar and punctuation. And I got lit up, but I finally figured it out. But the end punctuation always goes inside the quotation mark. So what's that you've got there? And then you'll notice we have the question mark and then the quotation, he asked Judy. So that's good. And then, and I think you know this instinctively, use opening and closing quotation marks to show when someone is speaking. So we know that everything that's inside those quotation marks is something that a character is saying. Okay, so this is the last slide that we're doing today. So it's important that you're dialed in here and you listen to instructions. So what we have here is we have 3 sentences. And what I want you to do is write sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3 in your responses so I can see what's going on. So I'll show you what I mean. So when you do your response, sorry, I know this is taking a little bit of time. I apologize. So when you do your response, just so I know who's doing what, and I could have done this on separate slides, but it would have been kind of goofy. So just write sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3, and then tell me your observations about each sentence. So there's a little change in each of these sentences. I want you to identify what those changes are in each sentence and explain what the effect of that change is. So let's go over the first one together. Trying to be cool is exhausting, said the new bird. It looks as though we're missing a pair of quotation marks, or we're missing a quotation mark here. So we have the beginning of the quote, but the effect of the change is this quote is technically still going because we haven't added an end quote to show the reader that that character is done speaking. So if I had to go back, sentence 1, the end quotation is missing. Technically, the speaker is still being quoted. That's it. Okay. So now what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at the second sentence and the third. What's changed? And then tell me what's the effect of that change. So I will give you, this one's going to take probably a little bit longer. I'll give you 3 minutes. I'll give you 3 minutes to finish this up. And I appreciate everyone's patience, trying something new today. So I know punctuation isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but it's a great way to impress your nerdy friends at a party. Mr. Mullen impresses me all the time with his knowledge of semicolons.
Or whatever. That's what I'm known for.
Mr. Semicolon. Hey, you've got an independent and dependent clause linked with a semicolon. Technically, that should be 2 independent clauses. Just, you know, not judging, just let you know. Okay, about 1 minute and 15 seconds left. And guys, I know like I'm kind of moving through this kind of quickly, more quickly than I would in a regular classroom situation. It's okay, don't stress on it. I just want you to think on your feet, be as quick as you can. And the main thing is you get the main idea of the lesson when we're done. So if you're scrambling to express yourself, don't worry about it, do the best you can.
Mr. Hartman,
Yes, ma'am.
you had Gerald and Faith.
Yes. Oh, they both showed up?
Yes, you're only right now with Stephanie.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Also, too, I don't know if you remembered, but we're going to remind them about their journals and their
What, just getting them done?
that and their punctuation, and make sure that they know we're looking at them and all that.
Okay. Okay, so I know there's some people who are still working. We're going to go ahead and take a look here to see what's going on. And they're missing a quotation. The speaker is still being quoted. Yes, correct. Sentence 2, in the sentence, the word everyone's has that punctuation. So everyone is, okay? And sentence 3, it's missing the first pair of quotation marks. Correct. So, which means that the quote hasn't even started yet. Okay, good. And those of you who followed the sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3 format, thank you. It makes it a lot easier for me to identify who's doing what. Sentence 2, the person that is talking is a bird. Okay. There is no quotation mark in the beginning, so people don't know if they're talking. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, a lot of people didn't follow the sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3. We'll get there. Sentence 2 has both quotations in the back and the front. Okay. Sentence 3 doesn't have quotations in the beginning. Good. Good, good, good. So a lot of us, this is good. This is good stuff. And I know there's some people still working, and that's cool. I get it. Like, I'm moving us a little bit faster than I would be in a classroom situation. So trying to remember everyone's name is exhausting. The new bird said. So everything's punctuated correctly here. So we have the quotation and we have the dialogue tag. So everything is punctuated correctly in the second one. The only difference is we changed the order of the dialogue tag. So up here, you'll notice said the new bird. This one said the new bird said. So both of those are correct. They're okay. The main thing is we're just citing the speaker of the quote. So that's what changed. And the second sentence is we just changed the order of the dialogue tag. And both of these, said the new bird or the new bird said, is correct. So we're good there. And then the third one, we're just missing that beginning quotation. So it would be confusing for the reader if they're looking at that and go, well, wait a minute. I see an end quote, but I don't know where this quote begins. And then said the new bird. Okay. Cool. All right, guys, we covered a lot of material in a relatively short amount of time. But what I want you to do is I am going to give you 60 seconds to write.
I'm going to share my screen with you guys just a second. So, and then we'll get to reading. Okay. Ms. Digby, it's saying that I cannot share my screen. It says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
I never remade you a host. There you go.
Okay. Thank you. The first step is survey. So when we come to every good reader, when he comes to a text, he looks and he surveys, he observes it, and he comes up, looks for, examines it for some clues as to what it's about. And the first place we look is the cover. And so on this cover, what is it that you notice? What is it that gives you a clue about the content of this text? We look at the title. The title is Working Days. We look at the picture. What does the picture tell you? Okay. So we're talking about working days, but these children, they look fairly different than what we might see today. How are they different? They're all young men. They're all pretty grimy, right? They look like they've been working themselves. So then we go to the table of contents. And just reading, remember I told you yesterday that by reading the table of contents before you start a book, you end up with many clues. We start reading it. Childhood, time to work or play. There's a question right at the beginning. We've talked about questions as one of our skills that we use all the time when we're reading. The next chapter is learning to work. Factory work. Children at work. What word is being repeated over and over and over again? Of course, it is work and children. And so if we think about it, looking at the cover, now reading the table of contents, we have two major clues about the content of this text. The next one says child labor reform. Oh, this word may be something that we need to look up, come to terms with, maybe a new word for us. Labor itself is a synonym for work. And then we have the glossary and the index. I always like to check the back of the book to see what else it has. So if I go all the way to the back, I don't see very much on the back cover, but maybe on the inside of the back cover, I get a glossary that gives me some important words. Apprentice, a person who learns a job or skill by working for someone who is experienced. Indentured, that's a word that we don't use very much anymore. Required by a contract to work for a certain period of time. Nurtured, helped to grow. Reformers, people who work for change. Okay? So, right now, sorry, I went too far. Right now, we have a good clue about what this book, this text is about. And so we should make a prediction. I want you to take your whiteboards real quick. And I want you to write a one-sentence prediction about this book. I think this book is about fill in the blank. Give you 1 minute, go.
Mr. Mullen, you kept cutting off on my end. I didn't hear what you said. Go on.
Okay. What I'm asking you to do is to take your whiteboard and make a prediction of what you think this book is going to talk about. I think this book is about fill in the blanks. One sentence, a one-sentence prediction. Remember, every time that we read, we continually make predictions about what is coming next or what the author is going to say and try to teach us. We anticipate what is going to be, what we are going to read, okay? Okay, I want you to hold those up for me for a second, if you can. I want to see your answers. And so if you've got your whiteboard, hold them up to the screen. Yeah, I see one so far. Thank you, Mr. Hartman. I think this book is about kids working. That's about as simple as you can get. But absolutely, that's a good start. Michaela, hold it up so I can see it. This book is about children and their daily life as they work. Okay? I think the book is about children working. Good. I think this book is about the difference between now and then of kids working. Carly noticed something about the picture at the beginning, and that it looks like it was an older picture. And in fact, this book is about children working and about how the laws have changed to prevent them working in the ways they were working once before, over 100 years ago. We call that child labor reform. And that's what the book is going to give us information about. So, before we get started, every time that we come to our reading, we're going to take some time to look at some vocabulary. So go ahead and erase your whiteboards real quick. And I want you to go to, or I already have it in front of you, page number 2. Page number 2 has a bold word, which I'm kind of highlighting and circling at the top. And that word is nurtured. Nurtured. I want you to spell it, write it out on your board. N-U-R-T-U-R-E-D. U-R-E-D. Okay? Nurtured. Now, whenever we come to a bold lettered word and we do not know what it means, we can use several strategies to figure it out. On many of the bold lettered words, I will give you the definition. This one, nurtured, means to help grow or help mature. Okay? But when we come to a word like this, and if we do not know what it means, one of the best strategies to use is to read around the word. Read around the word. Childhood should be a time for young people to be and allowed to play and learn. You see how I took the word out and I'm going to try to put in a word. Childhood should be a time for young people to be taken care of and allowed to play and learn. You see, I took another idea, something that I might know, and a connection that I might have, and I put it in there, and I checked to see if it makes sense. Okay? Well, I've given you the definition of the word. Let's put that in. Childhood should be a time for young people to grow or be allowed to grow and to play and learn. Okay? I want you to look at another word that is on page 6, I believe. And this is the word indentured. Some children without a family become indentured servants. They were often not paid, but were given food and a place to live in exchange for their work. Again, I'm going to tell you what indentured means this time, but you should be able to take the word out and supply another word for it and see if it makes sense. Some children without a family became servants. They were often not paid, but they were given food and a place to live in exchange for their work. To be indentured means that you work for a certain amount of time in order to learn a trade. Okay? Okay, so those are the two words we wanted to look at today. At this point, if we were in a regular classroom, I would have you read for me, but in our situation right now, that's kind of hard, so I'm going to read to you, and I want you to follow along. Okay? So here we go. Childhood, time to work or play. Childhood should be a time for young people to be nurtured and allowed to play and learn. Let's stop for a second. What do we notice about this sentence? Think about what Mr. Hartman has taught us. That's right, it's a quote. Someone is being quoted as saying this. Let me read it again. Childhood should be a time for young people to be nurtured and allowed to play and learn. Let's go down to the blue box. Childhood should be a time for young people to work, to keep them out of trouble, and to build character and discipline. Oh, here's a word I'm not sure about. Discipline. Discipline. What does that mean? Well, if I don't know, what I can do is take out the word and supply another word and see if it makes sense. Childhood should be a time for young people to work and keep them out of trouble, to build character and to build character and discipline. I want you to think about what other word might go in there, and I want you to put it on your whiteboard, a synonym that you think might be good for the word discipline. Oh, I like that. Build character and respect. That makes sense, doesn't it? That makes sense. Okay, thank you, Carly. Someone else. What do we see? What do we want to put in there for the word discipline? I'm looking for a whiteboard. Not many are up. What word would go in there? Motivation. That's a great word that would work there. Good behavior. Oh, I like that, Sebastian. Destiny, you had a good word too, by the way. Responsibility, you bet. To respect one another, I think that's wonderful. See, we're all talking about character words. It's a character word. So we're hitting really close to it just by removing it and putting in one that we think might work. Okay? It's not a bad thing to use your guessing power when we're reading. Okay? Now, what do we know about these two quotes is that they disagree with each other. And so let's continue reading. That's interesting that they did this. Which of these two quotes, I'm reading on page 3, which of the two quotes to the left sounds better to you? Long ago, children did not have much choice in the matter. The idea that childhood should be a time of freedom and play is fairly new. Until recently, most American children spent their days hard at work. Look at the pictures. They give you clue as to meaning. Page number 4, learning to work. When people from Europe first came to America, their children had no choice of how to spend their time. They worked to survive. Okay, let's try it again. The word survive. What if I don't know what that means? Cover it up and put a new word in there. Okay, read around it, cover it up, put a new word in. When people from Europe first came to America, their children had no choice of how to spend their time. They worked to survive. They worked to live. Even the youngest child had chores. They gathered wood, collected eggs, pulled weeds in the garden. Around age 10, a child might become an apprentice. Apprentices lived and trained with a grown-up who was an expert at their job, like a tailor, a baker, or a sawyer. Look again at the pictures. What do we notice? Over at the right, we have a caption below our picture, and it says this: long ago, a craftsman might have taken on an apprentice to have extra help in the workshop. You see the older man teaching the young man to do something with yarn. Page 6. Girls at that time were not expected to work outside of the home, but some of them learned to sew and become hat makers and seamstresses. Now remember what I said about pictures giving you clue. I'm not really sure what that word seamstress means. I know what a hat maker is. That seems pretty obvious. But what's a seamstress? Look at the pictures and get a clue. On your whiteboards, I want you to write down what you think a seamstress is, and then I want you to hold it up for me so that I can see it once more again. Seamstress. What is a seamstress? Look at the pictures, get a clue. What does a seamstress do? When I see your whiteboards up, please share them with me. I see several of you writing away. Okay. An artist. Okay. I see that. Alexis, thank you. And Jaden, seamstress workers equals workers. Your bet. Seamstress is a job. Seamstress is a skill. What is it, the skill that they have? What are they doing? I think that they're making clothes. Exactly. That's exactly what a seamstress does. They use sewing machines and they put together clothes for other people. Okay? So let's continue reading. Some children without a family became indentured servants. They were not often paid, but they were given food and a place to live in exchange for their work. Remember, indentured means to work for a certain length of time in order to learn a skill while they were being taken care of. Some children became slaves. They did work similar to indentured servants, but their lives were more difficult. Indentured servants were seen as people, while slaves were seen as someone's property. Some started working when they were only 4 years old. Okay. Page 8. Again, look at the pictures. Long ago, things such as clothing and toys were made by hand. But by the mid-1800s, machines and factories were making these items faster and for less money. Cities began to fill with factories and people moved there to find jobs. Many immigrants, now that's a word that we should know because it's so much in the news today. Many immigrants from other countries moved to the United States to find jobs. About making connections. And we often make connections when we read, and those connections give us meaning. We can make connections with what we know about the world. We can make connections with what we know about what we've read, and we can make personal connections within ourselves. So look at these two pictures. Here we have a child, actually two children, it looks like, working in a coal mine. Here we have a young girl and a young boy working in a factory that's making cloth. Of the two, which one would you hate to work in the most? Let me say it that way. You see, that's a personal connection. And by looking at that and asking questions like that and making a personal connection, we help ourselves remember and understand the text. Page 12, young girls who are not old enough to work in sweatshops might be hired to clean people's houses. Young boys often delivered newspapers or shined shoes. Outside of cities, children worked in fields, planting and gathering crops. This work was seen as more important than going to school. In 1880, more than 1 million American children under the age of 16 had a job. That's 1 out of every 6 children at that time. That's not counting the children who work from home, making little objects to sell. They might sew clothes, roll cigars, or make toys. Families were paid for each item they made. Even the youngest children were expected to help pay the bills. Remember, it's about what? Survival. Then we read the caption, look over here, we see a family, they're working. Why are they working? They're all working in order to make money that they might survive. The 3 oldest children in this picture are Joseph, Rosie, and Andrew. All three of them helped their mother sew clothes. The family made about $2 a week if they had enough work. Child labor reform. Here we go. Between 1890 and 1920, the laws began to change for child workers. There were people called reformers. Remember, reformers are those people who work for change in society. There were people called reformers who felt the government should do more to protect children. Reformers supported laws that fixed the dangerous conditions facing child workers. They also helped to create more public parks and schools. Page 16. Kindergarten became common across the country because of these reformers. They also created after-school and daycare programs for children of working mothers. Around this time, states began to pass laws requiring children to attend school at least part of the time. Sending children to school was a good way to make sure that they weren't being forced to work. So, you have to go to school. So when did that start? That started with this. You see, there's a direct connection between the reforms that happened to help children and you coming to school. Compulsory education started with the child labor reform. Look at those. Look at that school. I remember there was a school like that not very far from where I was raised. The National Child Labor Committee, formed in 1904. This group helped bring about change for child workers. The NCLC improved workplaces and limited the number of hours that children were allowed to work. Today, there are laws in the United States to protect children and give them a chance to play and learn as they grow up. So, thank you for listening and reading along with me. Now, when we come to those places where we have words we do not understand, there are more than one strategy to use. What you need to do is start using them on a consistent basis. We are going to have words all the time that we will not know. But we shouldn't ignore them. We should attend to them, okay? We shouldn't just skip over them. And if we do substitute a word that goes in them, we must listen for understanding, okay? If the sentence if the word we supply doesn't make sense, then we have to go back and supply another word or try to deal with that word in such a way that we get meaning out of the sentence, okay? So we have two words that I want you to use in sentences. And on our Google Classroom, I've put up this assignment. It's you should get it done now, really. But the word is nurture and the word is reformer. And it's a Google Doc. It's shared with each of you and done in such a way that you can, shared with you in such a way that you can make it your own. So go to that. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's called Working Days. I think Working Days has it in the title. Hold on a second.
Have it called two sentences from Working Days.
Yep, that's it.
With no date.
Well, that's because I did it this morning.
Oh, okay.
I fixed my two other ones. Or maybe I didn't fix them all. Anyways, two sentence from Working Days. Go ahead and click on that, pull that up, go ahead and fill it in. Mr. Hartman, did you have a question that you wanted to?
As far as the lesson was concerned?
I was wondering, you asked me for a question earlier, remember? Before we.
Oh, yeah. Do we want to, we can go over that. Do you want to, they have this, what they're doing right now is their homework for tonight, correct?
Yes, it is.
If you want, let's, maybe during that time tomorrow, that stretch from like 11 to 11:30, maybe we can team up on that response. We'll give them a few minutes to write something.
You want to teach them the rice?
Yeah, we can do that. So we'll give them an opportunity to do it on their own, and then we'll break it down like how to structure the, when we're doing a short answer response. So I want them to sort of wrestle with it a little bit, and then we'll go over how to format that. So yeah, I think maybe so that stretch tomorrow from like 11 to 11:30ish.
Okay, sounds good. Okay.
And
Now,
then
guys,
I can access that book. It's literacy footprints, right? So I can access that.
yeah, it's literacy footprints level R.
Perfect.
So you can do that. Okay, guys, we're going to be looking at this reading for a couple more days, doing some stuff with it. And as we do that, we will be attending to and looking at those 7 habits of effective readers. We'll also be looking at strategies that will help us as we read. Okay. Strategy we learned today was read around and supply the word. Okay. Okay. At this point, I'm finished, Mrs. Digby. I'm done. Wiped out.
The walk off.